Hello, everyone, and welcome to the pilot episode of the EUROPAST Podcast. My name is Dora Komnenovic, and I will be moderating today's talk. When I'm not moderating podcasts, and to be quite frank, I'm doing it for the very first time, I'm coordinating the EUROPAST project on behalf of the Leibniz Center for Contemporary History in Potsdam, besides being involved in a number of other activities at the intersection between research, education, and project management. Today, we wish to present EUROPAST, a 3-year horizon twinning project, and talk a bit about its inception, activities, goals, and future plans. In order to do so, we've invited our project leads to join us for a cup of coffee. Now, let's see whom do we have at our virtual coffee table. May I please ask you to introduce yourselves, your respective institutions, as well as their role in the project.
Hello, so my name is Violeta Davoliūtė. I am representing Vilnius University Institute of International Relations and Political Science. And Vilnius University is, in fact, the manager of this project.
I'm Juliane Fürst. I'm a departmental head at the Center of Contemporary History in Potsdam. I lead the Department Communism and Society. I'm also a lecturer at the Humboldt University and a senior research fellow at the University of Bristol. But this particular project is attached to the ZZF, and I'm researching cultural and social aspects in late socialism and beyond.
My name is Törnquist-Plewa, and I'm professor in Eastern and Central European Studies at Lund University. My home institution is called Center for Languages and Literature, but I deal mostly with cultural history. And in this project, I'm a work package leader for work package number 3 about strengthening research management and administrative capacity.
And I'm Thomas Cauvin. I'm Associate Professor of Public History at the Center for Contemporary and Digital History at the University of Luxembourg. And I think what we're bringing is our expertise in digital and public history. This is something I've been very keen in researching, the citizen aspect of doing participatory public and digital history.
Wow, that's 4 different institutions, 4 different partners from 4 European countries. So how did the 4 partners come together?
Well, it's a long story, actually. First of all, it started with the story of Vilnius University. I'm working, as I said, at the Institute of International Relations and Political Science, and I was interested in the issues of memory and oral history, memory politics, the memory of the Holocaust, the late Soviet period, and so forth for quite some time. And I noticed that a group of researchers at Vilnius universities kind of came to share an interest in these several related topics. Precisely what I mentioned, oral history, the rise of memory wars, legislated history, the rise of propaganda, populism, using historical narratives, and that we all are kind of using, teaching, doing research, addressing these issues in the media. And I thought that we could bring kind of more coherence to our work and more expertise and get bigger impact by combining our efforts. And then we sought for these opportunities. So I looked at what's possible. The administration looked at what's possible, and saw that these EU grants. And this particular one, Horizon Twinning project, can offer such opportunity. And then, of course, we looked for what. That's the partner part. It's very important and actually very complicated, and it's always based. Finding good partners is really essential. And what I learned is very much based on kind of meeting people in your field, working together, having contacts. And I was familiar with the work of Juliane Fürst from CCF. We met several years ago. We were joking that we met in a Finnish, not Finnish actually, Estonian sauna, but in fact it was a summer school on Soviet studies, where a number of people from different countries, UK, Germany, Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, came together and spent several days really sharing their ideas and making presentations, but also spending some time and kind of chatting about our work together. And I think since then we worked together, in several contexts. And I knew that Juliane is working on the late Soviet period. I was familiar with her work, and I thought, okay, it is natural for me to reach out and see whether ZF and Juliane would be interested in this project. With Barbara, I was very well familiar with Barbara's work. I assigned her work to my students. Also, I heard her talk in a conference, and I kind of knew Barbara without knowing Barbara. We've never met, but I already knew who Barbara is. And so I found that the topic of public history could be something of common denominator to our work, and that would help us to find focus, and as I said, help us connect our research topic and make a stronger impact. And here I found Thomas. I could say I knew Thomas only by his reputation, from his publications. Never met him personally, and I made this cold call, if I could put it this way, and it worked. And I think this consortium, it was. I don't think we would have been successful without this particular team.
Yeah, I'll jump in here because we too, us two, were the sort of original, and because you mentioned the infamous sauna, which actually I just want to point out, it was indeed a sauna. It was a summer school too, but we did indeed meet at the sauna, or even more glamorous, at a former chicken farm, turned national heritage site of Estonia, because it was a very famous modernist building, very beautifully located at a lake. What stuck with me is that in many ways our story together is very much the story of sort of post-Soviet scholarship. We both sort of started out, I think, very much in our respective communities. And then in many ways, Tallinn, I think for me, really, Tallinn was one of the first times when I really met scholars from the former Soviet space en masse, and really with a sort of view of working together. Suddenly the time had come, and not only because of the sauna and the chicken farm, etc., but because we suddenly were asking the same questions and employing the same methodologies. Well, I mean, obviously, there was quite a gulf between the different kind of academia, simply. And now, I mean, I'm actually off to Tallinn again this year for the summer school and to the chicken farm, and I suspect to the sauna. So I'm interested to see who else I will meet in the sauna. But it shows a little bit of how far the world has come and how far our bits of Europe have come in the last 30 years. And if one always has a sort of negative views of failed democratization, failed integration, failed, whatever. And I actually think what I like about the project is because it is sort of kind of an affirmation of a success story of actually scholars working together on an equal level. And I come later on again to the funny setup of the grant as a kind of a colonial or post-colonial institute, but I think de facto the way of how Violeta and I have worked together, and many others around us, actually it tells a big and positive story. And I think just to continue this positivity, I think there's another thing. We have a spectacularly failed grant we applied for together beforehand, where we really got reviews of telling us we should go home and bury ourselves. And it's interesting to see that out of failed applications, sometimes there can be successful applications, because even though we didn't recycle the exact topic, I think a lot of stuff which we had been ideas and approaches and we had thrown between each other in that application of there was a large application, we weren't the only two applicants. We shared the shame. But yeah, so I think sometimes these successful stories actually come out of an unsuccessful one.
If I may, I would like to add that it's our projects in a way illustrates different ways to create networks. One is, of course, via personal meetings at conferences and in other projects, but it's what happens in my case. It was a kind of effect of snowballing, because I, of course, was familiar with Violeta's work, but never had the opportunity to meet her. And then there were two colleagues from Lund University, my close colleagues, Per Anders Rodling and his wife Odetta Rodling, both very good historians. They actually approached me and asked me if I would be interested to connect to Violeta and have a chat with her about possibilities to be part of a consortium in this planned project at the same time. And I think they asked me because I was involved in several Horizon applications before, some failed, some successful. And then I decided to speak with Violeta and her colleagues Rasa Bodkiewicz-Ute and Vilius Mačkinis. So we had a Zoom meeting, and all three made a very good impression on me. And I thought, it seems that these are really reliable people, because I mean, this is very, very important when you try to create a consortium and work together with research proposals, that you can be assured that you can rely on these people, that they are solid and they will do their work. And certainly both Violeta and her co-workers did this impression on me. So I decided, why not? It could be very fun, and especially that we could do it as well together with Odetta and Per Anders. And then I started to speak also with another colleague at my department, Sune Bechmann, who told me about Thomas as well, about his work, especially with digital humanities. So in a way, I recommended Violeta to look at your work, Thomas, and we thought that you were perfect for this consortium.
Same for me. I had never met any of you, and I think that's the point of the research, to meet people that you didn't know before. Although we have, as you know, we always have a friend of a friend who can connect us all. And I think that's, for me, that's the first thing about that research project, about people. I mean, we have great ideas and great projects, but projects are about people. And I think that what matters, meeting people that you would not have met otherwise, or even to show that what we're doing is not so special. Because we are very often asked, okay, what's so special about you? Why should we fund your project? What do you add to the research and the historiography? And very often we find that, well, Barbara, Julian, Violeta are doing very similar things. So it's not about us being special, but together having common questions. And we have keywords that we can all resonate. We have different approaches, and that's the strength of the project. But we also have keywords like impact, engagement, democracy. Those things that I think are our engine in our research project. So again, for me, it's about research of people, networks of people that and together, and that's the point of the twinning project, together with common forms and common questions, can be stronger and trans-European, because I think, it's one asset of those research projects to go beyond our borders. In Luxembourg, it's super easy because you drive 40 kilometers, you're beyond the border. But I think it's very important to create those bridges that will last after EUROPAST.
Thank you very much for illustrating how networking works and how consortia are actually built, because this is what comes first. Yeah, first you build up a consortium, you identify the right call, and then you apply for the grant. We've mentioned before that EUROPAST is a horizon twinning project. So what does that mean?
So, well, it's a capacity building project for Vilnius University. And, as Juliana mentioned, the language is a bit strange because the EU is trying to avoid any language that could be seen as patronizing. But of course, it's you can't avoid it, because the goal of this program is to help less developed institutions in Europe to catch up with what's seen as more developed ones. And so, without calling any one institution less developed or less advanced, so then the different languages used, that's kind of the widening institution. So in this case, Vilnius University is the widening institution. Now, it is built around a pilot research project. And so unlike HERA or COST, it is not primarily a research project, but one designed to increase the research capability of the main beneficiary, and as I said, in this case, Vilnius University, through cooperation with partner institutions that are very established. As an outcome of this project, then researchers at this developing institution or widening institution should have internal capacity and established partnerships, then to be in a position to develop a competitive application for major research grants like HERA, European ERC, European Research Council grant, and others. So I hope I captured the essence.
Yeah, as I threatened, I was going to say a bit more about this, what Violeta called the funny language, and the sort of, the idea, I guess, is sort of a new institute is looking to more established institute, as it is, as it happens in our case, and I think as was a little bit the idea behind is of course it has that Eastern European, Western European divide, which I found from the idea always a bit problematic. But on the other hand, it gave us the opportunity to connect, and I think it's sort of a bit up to us as well to fill it differently, because, for example, I had never contact with much of Swedish academia. Actually, with Luxembourg, it happens our institute has a relatively vivid exchange already, but I personally also it didn't. So I see it very much as well as connecting with Vilnius and Vilnius connecting with us, that actually it also gives us the opportunity to do that sort of lateral, the Potsdam, Lund, Luxembourg axis. And I mean, at the moment, of course, in our field, the word decolonization is everywhere. Literally you could attend a workshop every day on how to decolonize Eastern European history. I must say, I haven't yet heard any really good pragmatic indicators, apart from we have to put more Ukraine and Georgia onto our syllabus, which is completely true. But, that decolonization is supposed to be something deeper than that. And in a funny way, I think that despite the colonial setting of the grant, if actually our project could be something to go down this path, because I think it is a sort of mutual learning process, and it's also it opens up a conversation about all sorts of topics of what actually are the differences, what are the similarities, what are the challenges, what where do we actually look at Eastern Europe, and Eastern Europe is showing something to Western Europe. And I think in the Ukraine world, it really has become very obvious. I mean, while Europe was going through its own Western European crisis with Greece, Brexit, etc., here we have Eastern Europe staunchly and now in the face of utmost violence defending their idea of Europe. And in a way, I feel like, and on historical and historiographical terms, there's something to be said as well, that the challenges Eastern Europe faces, or Central Europe, with coming to terms with very complex past, much more complex than what Western Europe experienced in the last 50, 70 years, can actually give us really important hints of how to deal with populist narratives, et cetera, which all happen in the West as well. And I mean, we have no American involvement, but I mean, we kind of see of what can happen in the USA at the moment, where I don't want to say out of nowhere, but we have the same competing historical narratives. And that's actually putting it wrongly, I must say. We have the same issue of lies and half-truth encroaching on historical facts, which we thought we would never have to face. But actually, which in Eastern Europe has been a much longer challenge to counter.
I just want to add that from the beginning, so I have seen in this project an opportunity for a kind of win-win situation. So it's not for me, even if it's in theory, it's of course it should be first and foremost beneficial for Vilnius University. I think in practice we will be strengthened, all of us, both networking among us, but also different kind of capacities at our university. So when I agreed to take care of this working package number 3 about strengthening research management and administrative capacities, I was aware that probably Vilnius asked me to take this work package because Lund University in this consortium reminds a little bit about Vilnius University in terms to be comprehensive and big and old university. And moreover, according to different ranking institutes, Lund is among top 100 universities in the world, which we like to be proud about. But I know I'm very much aware that we have also a lot to learn, become better, and it's great to have this opportunity to learn from each other practices. And speaking about colonial, it's true. The language wise in the call is a little bit reminding about it, but I think it's very good that European Union institutions want to create better balance in terms of research resources between the old members of the Union and the former Eastern European countries. We will use this kind of nomenclature. I think it is needed to create a better balance before we really can work together on equal terms. And this is a way to do it because Vilnius got a lion part of resources here, which is very fair, of course.
Yeah, I will agree with all you've been saying. The language is sometimes a bit funny, considering that the Center for Contemporary and Digital History here is 5-year old. So who's senior in the project is very subjective. And I would endorse Barbara's comment on win-win. This is clearly something. I mean, if I had not won anything from the research, I would not be in the research project. I mean, I love Vilnius University and I want to support you, but if I don't get anything, right, it's hard to invest 3 years, right? So it's very clear that all of us are winning something. Where I would add something is maybe on early career researchers, because I think they should be the big winners. And I think that's also very important in the call, right? Supporting early career researcher, no matter where they are. I mean, obviously in Vilnius, but also in our partnership. And I think that's why my university is also in charge of the work package number 4 on training, because this is something we have to learn. When I was doing my PhD, I learned how to be possibly a good researcher. I never learned about the soft skills, building trust, managing projects, managing teams, applying for grants. And if you don't know those things, it's very hard to find a position in academia. So I think our research project could be obviously win-win, but also teaching our early career researchers to strive and to continue being researchers, because that's increasingly difficult for them if they don't know what's called soft skills, but they are not soft. They are very important in doing international research project. As you know, Violeta, managing a team of 4 partners, 4 institutions with different cultures is very difficult. So I'm learning. We're all learning, and that's very optimistic. So that's a good ending for my 2 cents.
Yes, I guess this explains the rationale behind the project. Could one of you briefly summarize its main goals?
Well, as I said, I mentioned there is a pilot research project, and we already issued a call. So for edited volume, one of the deliverables of this project is the edited volume of articles. So, an inseparable part of this deliverable is also conducting a number of training events so that you train people basically to come up with an international publication that kind of echoes also what Thomas has said. This training part, even on how to come up, with an international publication is one thing, but that actually has to do with a lot of networking that young scholars very often do not understand. That is, finding the right publication, right journal for your topic, getting in touch with people. And so another goal of this project is actually to help early career researchers to publish and present their work. And working here in Lithuania, I noticed that sometimes some of the details that seems, some of the aspects that seem so obvious for people who worked in several countries are not at all obvious to young researchers. For example, when you give a presentation and you talk about a particular historical event that you want to bring to the international audience, very often people, do not contextualize it, do not see how to connect it to other contexts, or what other processes one could relate it to, and so forth. In other words, it's frequently kind of very local in its content and its presentation. And as we know, the research and academia, it really benefits from this global perspective, right? So, so another goal I would say is actually to communicate ideas about the topics that we're researching, let's say public history, right, to the international audience, but also beyond academia. Really beyond academia, to make an impact in the wider context, to develop stronger cooperation and mutual understanding among not only academics, but also practitioners and hopefully decision makers. We need this here in Lithuania very much, but I'm sure you guys are talking about the same thing in other contexts as well. So, so I would say these are the major goals of this project, and certainly what drives me forward. And also another goal, actually, to learn from the partners, and hopefully to open some venues to them as well. I very much want to learn from each one of the partners and their teams. And we already had one research colloquium where a person was talking about examples taken from Luxembourg, and some of our audiences, some of the members of our team, some of them never visited Luxembourg, but they said, oh my God, this really relates to what's happening here. I can relate to my practice, to my research, and this kind of network, this kind of connection, I really want to achieve.
Wow, that's fascinating indeed. That sounds like a lot of goals. So far, some terms were mentioned that our listeners might not be familiar with, such as work package, such as deliverable. So could you please say something more about the structure? So how do you manage a twinning project which involves 4 partner institutions?
So work package. So basically it's, we have 6 work packages or 6 sets of activities, if you will. And for each one of them, a different partner institution is responsible. So they take the load for organizing these events, communicating about these events and so forth. But of course, we are informing each other and interacting about this all the time. So each work package has a leader. It's a particular person, and all work package leaders are part of the steering committee. In addition to the steering committee, we also have an advisory board of experienced scholars supervising the work. These are the scholars that the people who we kind of know, we just talked about them, we make democratic decision to invite them. We also have ethics board to advise and monitor the ethical aspects of the implementation of the project.
How many people are working on the project altogether?
I don't think we know. I think it shows the success of the project so far that we don't know, because it actually is a lot of people who are involved in one way or the other. So you have the 4 original creators, but then actually all of us have delegated large chunks of our work, as you know, to our helpers and second others, and they again have recruited more people. And initially, like when Violeta and I started talking about this project, we didn't talk about public history. That was something that came in later. But as it turns out, the ZZF actually has a very strong public history component. So I got our public historians involved, and so in a way, maybe it's good not to put an absolute number on it, because there is no absolute number. Every podcast we do, every colloquium we do, every research seminar, more people will get involved. So it's open-ended. It's a sort of infinite number. And once we open up certain bits of it to researchers outside our institutions, that number is even bigger. And maybe I wanted to say one addendum to what Violeta said about the goals. I think we have one interesting side effect stroke goal as a result of the war, that actually we are now part of creating a European research space that is a lot about Europe, but it's also actually a lot about creating a space to do a history where a lot of our region isn't free and is getting unfreer by the day. I mean, if you look at Russia, but even if you look further into Central Asia, Belarus, and to have a sort of counter answer, I think that is an unexpected side goal we have developed, which really history has presented to us rather than us thinking about it very actively. And it's been interesting for us in the ZZF. We have a lot of refugees from Ukraine, but also from Russia, and a lot of them have got involved now in EUROPAST. So we actually have a much more international crew taking part than we initially thought we would have, and that has, of course, altered the goals of the program and the people who are involved.
Yes, I may add as well to the goals this aspect which touches upon the work package I'm responsible for, and this is about strengthening the administrative capacity at our research centers at universities. And why do we need it? And especially Vilnius as main beneficiary industry feels that they need to strengthen this capacity, it is because we are more and more dependent on external funding to conduct our research. And it is about both national funding, but very much about international funding as well. And especially European Union is today quite important funder of research. At the same time, this project work is a kind of industry, I would say, that you need to know the rules, how to produce good proposals. There is special language that should be used, and you need to meet some criteria which are not obvious for researchers, but and researchers need to get help from good administrators, including economists, to produce such successful application that will meet this extra research requirements. So we need all to build this kind of capacities at our universities, and within this project we can do it together. So we have created a research managers network that will work together with research to help them both to sustain this network in terms of administrating day-to-day issues that are needed to be solved, but also to develop manager skills in order for our network to be able to maybe to apply together in the future for external funding from the European Union, for example, for Horizon collaborative project or cost action, or also maybe we can encourage our individual researcher to apply for ERC funding, which is extremely important to develop research careers. So we want to help each other to build this capacity as well.
Since you've mentioned these various funding opportunities and how difficult it is to formulate a research proposal, I was wondering if we could just quickly go back to the beginnings of the project. While as the network was not as big as it is now, and it is still growing, as Juliane has pointed out. So the first step is to build up the consortium, to identify the call, and then the application process starts. So who writes the actual proposal, and how does it work? I mean, for institutions, you need to coordinate that. Who coordinates it all, and how does the decision making process look like?
Well, I can say a few words about that. First of all, I have to say that it's a big process. This is my kind of first project of this sort, and I have to say that we were fortunate to have a really great team of administrators. If this taught me something so far, is how closely researchers have to work with the administrators in order to be successful, how kind of closely they need to consult and align each other and make decisions democratically, in order to be successful. So we were very lucky to have a great team of administrators at the institute here, Institute of International Relations and Political Science. One of them was mentioned, Rasa Bortkevičiūtė, also Vilius Mačkinis, young, enthusiastic, hardworking people, very friendly, very nice, were very pleasant to work with. And so they were invaluable in coordinating this project. Of course, one should always keep in mind that this is not something you can do at last minute, in last day or week or a month. Even the process of consortium building took some effort. I remember I was working with someone at University of Södertörn. And, I had a publication together and everything was good. And I thought, okay, we are going to have a meeting now. And they were my kind of first candidate, right? And the meeting went really awfully. I mean, nothing terrible happened, but it's just, you could see, okay, we're not clicking. There was something not right. And so, but we did not give up. Like Juliane was talking about failures. So that was a failure. but I thought, okay, no problem. We're gonna move on. So after the consortium, sorry for this small digression. Well, another important thing is that each part of the application, actually, it was, we went through it at least a dozen times. We went through a dozen drafts. Even the concept of public history was not there at the beginning, right? It was more along the politics of memory. And so the final text was nothing like the first. So to sum it up, it was a lot of work. It's a very demanding process with several people from across the university and even Council of Sciences looking at it and making criticism. So, but the key thing here and the most important and demanding part of the drafting is to make the various parts cohere together, to really make it coherent so that every activity of the work package clearly supports the achievements of the objectives. The objectives then, as I said, need to be aligned with the desired outcomes of the twinning program as a whole. The partners one needs to argue why these partners and not why the other partners, how not only this widening institution, quote unquote, but also each of the partners actually benefit from each other. And so this logical chain is what the evaluators want to see, I believe. And it takes an enormous amount of work to articulate this and to make it immediately clear to the reader.
And how long did it take approximately to finalize the application process?
That's a good question. We were working extremely intensely. I think the actual preparation of the application took for about half a year. Colleagues, correct me if I'm wrong.
At least 1 year, and that's short. I mean, for any European project, it's more than that. And I think that's something we should highlight to our early career colleagues who are listening. It takes a lot of time. And most of the time, the first big project, you fail, right? So, and you reapply. And so the time, you have to plan, years ahead, not 6 months, not 1 year. We were successful, but there were also some difficult times in the application, and we should be honest with the difficult times too, because writing together, first, we need trust, and I think we have that. We trust each other, so that was a good start. But then there are some rules, and to make it coherent, we need a leader. And Violeta and Vilnius were the leader in writing the proposal. You can't have 8 hands writing the proposal. We can jump in, but you need someone to make it consistent. So we need leaders because there are rules. You have to be coherent. So it's not this democratic process of co-writing, like everybody can write. And so let's be honest, you need a leader, and that's why Vilnius is the leader in making us coherent. I think that's the main skill that they brought in addition to other, but to the proposal.
It's true, Thomas, but the way we did it, actually, when I would write something, and then colleagues would look at it, we would still come back and would ask for the comments from each of our colleagues, and then we would pay attention. We would accept some of the comments, and we would perhaps not accept the others. But it really is a teamwork, though you're absolutely right. One person or one institution or one group really has to take the lead and, actually sit down and formulate the concepts, the entire methodology and so on and so forth. So
this is a valuable piece of advice indeed. Do you have some other suggestions for our listeners who might be struggling with the European application at the moment?
I think there's a sort of danger, especially if one looks at sort of the guidelines for European applications, that one gets lost in exactly that kind of language you highlighted: work packages, deliverables. What are these funny timelines called?
Milestones.
Yeah, not only milestones, but there's sort of a getters chart or something.
Exploitation.
Yeah, it can make a long list of horrible words which we never wanted to know, but now know all too well. But I think, as someone who has actually written quite a few of these European grants in the end, I think there has to be, cannot lose sight of the authenticity. If you cannot describe in simple words anymore what you actually want to do, you have lost it. One has to sort of stick to actually something. This is what I really want to do, and this is what I find interesting, and this is how I can express it. And yes, then I can add all these sort of terms which are desired by the application process, but one cannot lose sight of that authentic project one had once initially. I mean, Vilnius did an amazing job in writing this, because really with that grant, I think you had even more strange vocabulary than in other grants. But they also did this amazing job of A, checking back with us, but B, of keeping the idea. I think at all times we were quite clear what this grant is about. And I must say, at some point in the writing process, I lost touch of work packages and deliverables, etc. But I still always knew that this was something about the twinning, or let's say the quadrupling of institutions, for a common European idea and European values, and overcoming the difficulties of difficult paths. And because we had this really good, our own authentic keywords, we could sort of navigate the jungle of the other keywords.
I can add as well that the credits given to the team in Vilnius, because they were amazing. The deadline for this project proposal was horrible, because it was a few days after New Year's. So I understood that the team in Vilnius worked during the whole Christmas break, New Year's break, because we were in contact with them. So I needed to chase different administrators in Lund during Christmas break. I was happy to find one who was close to retirement and didn't have children at home. So he agreed to consult me during Christmas days, but still I could help with small things, but the big work was done by this great team in Vilnius. So of course everybody who wants to do it must be prepared for laborious and difficult and stressful time.
I really thank you for those kind words, Barbara. But I really would like to share a few moments of these last weeks before the application. It was before the war started in Ukraine in February. I think it was. I don't remember the exact date, but the deadline was actually February. I think the 1st of February, if I'm not mistaken. And before this 1st of February, me and an administrator, Rasa Bortkevičiūtė, who's also a PhD student, we had this, personal rhythm. I'm a morning person and she's a late night person. So she would be doing on this administrative part and would send something to me at 2 a.m. and she knows that I get up at 4 a.m. and then I would pick up, and then we had this, it was a lot of work, I have to say. So, and it was a very interesting kind of, this COVID restrictions were coming to an end, but this was still a period of COVID. Now, but I want to say one more thing, kind of referring to what Juliana said about this kind of initial idea that was driving us forward. We then, after we came up with the concept of public history, we really discussed the meaning of public history a lot, and we still continue talking about it. While it is an established discipline in the US or Western Europe, it's really quite unfamiliar to many scholars here in Lithuania. We are still debating on how to translate this concept. But personally, I define public history as the practice of communicating the past in a way that strengthens democracy. And so they sound grand or abstract, but in this part of Europe, as elsewhere in Europe, as in the world, historic narratives about the historical past, about recent past, really form very important part of political discourse and a lot of frictions, and especially in this part of Europe, the collapse of the USSR, which is still in living memory, the issues of the Holocaust, the commemoration of different experiences and what is silenced, what is spoken about. It's very intense, actually, and so somehow also I was thinking about, picking up and thinking what challenges do we as Europeans have? I know it sounds grand, but it's very, very personal for me, because I do believe in this European project, and I do believe in us, kind of sorting out a lot of issues about history, including the history of Europe. And I do this with my students, every week, and my students are international students. And so with this idea, actually, of somehow strengthening the unity of Europe through understanding each other better and knowing more about each other, this was for me this kind of founding idea. And it may sound declarative, but for me it was very, very real. And so I guess from this content part, that was something that was driving me forward.
Thanks a lot for mentioning this. In fact, the full title of the project is Facing the Past, Public History for a Stronger Europe. So how do you intend to face the past? That is what is in store for the future. The first 6 months of the project are behind us. We still have 2.5 years to go. Can you share some of the plans with our listeners?
Well, I think facing the past is an interesting name for the project, because facing the past first means that you have a distinction between past and present, which is quite useful. But also you have, if you're facing the past, you may see past in the present, right? And how people use the past, mobilize the past. So you have the past as something different, or the past in the present. And you have a keyword that, Violeta has been using quite a lot, impact, right? Which is sometimes a bad word for academics, right? And because you have this very liberal, market-oriented definition of impact. I think what we're also trying to show is that history can have qualitative impact in people's life, and that the way how we make history in a more democratic way, in a more participatory way, or sometimes not, that's something we have to discuss. When are you not participatory? But I think this has possibilities or opportunities to, make us stronger. I think the context, the discussion of making Europe stronger is very challenging, very good, but also very challenging. But I think I'm not in the reviewer's mind for your project, but I think what they may have liked is for us and for Vilnius especially to go beyond this expertise. Because as a reviewer, I always like when the expert goes beyond the expertise and show me, so what's going to be the benefit of my project? And what you said, Violeta, which is very personal, it's not about history only, it's about Europe. It's about what's Europe for you. I think this is something that we need today to show that research is not only this, data about the past. It has an impact. It has potential. And I would, I'd advise early career colleagues to think beyond the box. They're experts in the field, but when they apply for a European project, it's not enough. They have to show the benefit, the broader benefit of their research project, and not simply this niche of history. And I think what you said, Violeta, makes much sense. And I think that's also why I'm glad to be part of this project.
I think there's also a sort of historical context in terms of, and I must say, of course, with the war, even more, there is sort of Russia is always as a counterpart to Europe in one's mind. And as a researcher of the society and seeing how Russia in the last 30 years has turned away, is afraid of facing the past, does not want to hear about the Stalinist victims anymore, about collectivization, about Holodomor, about the Second World War and deportations, etc. And to actually say, but our counterpoint is that we are facing the past, including past, which might be very uncomfortable for Europeans as well. And in the end, we will emerge as stronger. It's a very optimistic statement, which has been done at various points before in the 60s, 70s, when Germany came around to finally facing the Holocaust, etc. But I think we are at the point in history where we kind of have to make it again, to say as historians, yes, we are critical. Yes, we have a critical eye towards the past. Yes, we will not be silent about facts we know. But in the end, it will make us stronger, not weaker. And if you're afraid of facing the past, that will make you weak, because it makes you vulnerable from the past. The past will come and haunt you, as you know. I mean, it's sort of lived out at the moment in ways we never thought would be possible, in the sort of starkness of its nature.
Absolutely true. I would like to add to that, if possible, briefly. So a couple of days ago, I was invited to take part in a debate on how to, as to the form of public kind of state holidays in Lithuania. And one of the participants, one of the officials, we were talking about the commemoration of the Holocaust, and one of the officials was saying, "Yes, okay, so we have to, commemorate, but we should not forget to promote the pride in our younger generation and so on." And so we had a debate precisely about this topic, that facing the most uncomfortable moments of one's past, whatever they are, can be the source of strength and, the source of pride. So it really, and it was, and so I think teaching, promoting responsible practices of history, of public history, could actually contribute to that, to this understanding, and could really help to strengthen this critical reflection, an invaluable tool for professionals, for historians, but also for society in general, that I think only strengthens somehow resilience, democratic resilience of societies.
The word impact was mentioned several times. In fact, this project wishes to address not only academia, not only researchers, early career researchers, but the general public as well. So how do you plan to do that? How do you plan to involve the general public in this project? And in general, how can people reach out to EUROPAST? How can people get in touch?
Well, we have, I will answer the first. As I said, we are, and others said as well, we are still in the process. It's the beginning, right? So I cannot give the answers to all the questions, but I can tell you the following. We have a good connection already with our history practitioners, people who work in different, museums, memory institutions. And they themselves are looking very intensely for the best practices of how to increase the participation of the people, how to attract the people, how to get them involved. I mentioned the research colloquial, a speaker was talking about some practices. So far, we are just working with the history practitioners, and actually, and hoping that we will reach out the public through their networks as well. We of course have our social media platforms about the project. You can learn on Twitter and Facebook, and actually our website is almost up. As with everything, it takes time. So we are not, we don't have it at the moment yet. But as I said, we hope to have it very soon. So we have these social media channels. And for me, through a number of events where we hope to bring practitioners, scholars, and decision makers together, I really hope that we will somehow create that impact. Now, what kind of decision makers? We already have a a long list of actors whom we hope to get involved, including people from Stratcom, people who are thinking, look, okay, this is the matter of security. These historical aspects, they are being weaponized, and it's kind of, it's dangerous to not to set any limits. So I would love to have to see a discussion among let's say scholars and history practitioners, with people who are saying, okay, these are the limits. I would like to have a discussion precisely about these limits and how these limits are defined. I believe that these are extremely important topics that go way beyond academia.
I would just like to emphasize it once again. Our listeners are more than welcome to follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, to subscribe to our newsletter. There are many events to come, starting with a summer school in June. There will be researchers and research managers lab in the fall. There are a couple of more summer schools that are being planned, public events such as lectures and workshops.
Just to follow up on Violeta, I think it's a difficult question about impact because it depends what we mean and intend by public. To be honest, I am more skeptical about general public for a simple reason, is that so far that we are working on a process much more than a topic. And my mother, my family, they would not be interested in that kind of discussion, right? They would like to know about, World War II or films in the 60s, something like that. But where I see benefit for us is to touch upon people who are maybe not in connection with academics, who work in museums, tour guides, for example. They may be interested in, communicating the past, right, to reach the public. Oh, that's something I'm interested in. And in the last research colloquium, we had a colleague of you, Violeta, from this museum in Vilnius, who approached us. Well, I'd never heard about public history, but the way you're talking about communication, participation is something that I do every day that I would like to know more. So I think this is where we could go beyond academic circle. I may be wrong, and we may touch the general public, but I think we also have to be more humble in what we can do in terms of impact, and perhaps be even more restricted in what public is for us. There is no harm saying that we can't reach everybody and we have a smaller target group, but that would be already a big success, because most of the time those kind of research projects have a limited outreach and impact.
Absolutely true, but as I said, it's still in the process. So we'll be discussing these issues again and again, I'm sure. It's a process, as you said.
A lot of things coming up, and could you please tell us what has been achieved so far?
Well, as I said, one of the things that are marked as deliverables is this edited volume. It's part of the research segment. So we issued a call for participation. I think we came up with a fascinating topic on turning points of public history in Central and Eastern Europe since 1945. I noticed that, I think we all noticed that there is a pretty big gap between different parts of Europe, what is traditionally called Eastern and Western Europe, when it comes to interpretations of the post-war era. And it is not at all clear whether this gap is growing smaller or bigger. So actually, I think it's a very pertinent topic, and we hope to get interesting team of researchers working on it. We also issued a call for the special issue of politology. It's a journal that's published here at Vilnius University. It's quite well ranked. It's in Scopus. You can see the call actually in our social media. You can find it quite easily. And we surprisingly we already got quite a lot of interest. We had our research colloquia that we all praised. We had a coffee talk about the gender issue and the importance of gender balance in preparing applications, EU grants and other applications, and in general how to make this, not a formality but a real policy. And I think it was very successful. We are preparing, it was already mentioned, the summer school, and we're talking about the events in the fall, including workshops with our history practitioners. And here, a team here from Vilnius University, we're invited to a breakfast tomorrow. Lithuanian National Museum has prepared a special exhibit. They call it Pavilion, where they're presenting Vilnius, the city of Vilnius, from 200 years ago. And they, from what I heard, I haven't visited yet, but it's an interesting approach. They also want to kind of tell the story of decolonization. They're using old Russian imperial maps, military maps. It was meant to be kind of like a colonial territory, but they're telling the history, the story of this city from a different perspective. As I said, I haven't seen. I'm very interested. But these are the people with whom we intend to work. A lot of them are professional historians. They're also experienced curators. They have their own ideas. They want to know how similar projects are done in Germany, in Sweden, in Luxembourg, and to apply best practices in their own work. So that's some of the.
Wow, that's a lot of activities and cooperation opportunities to look forward to. Do you have any concluding thoughts?
We're waiting for all of you in Vilnius. It's finally sunny here, and it's been sunny for almost 2 weeks. We have a 700th anniversary of the city, and I'm sitting looking at you here, my colleagues on screen. And so I can invite everyone to Vilnius and Vilnius University, including the new researchers, young researchers, and emerging scholars.
And we are looking forward to welcome all of you to Lund, and this will be, I hope that it will be wonderful weather, because it's the best time of the year here in Scandinavia. So you will come this time. Perfect.
And I want to say a special thank you to Dora, who is our coordinator of the project at the ZZF, and who will be coordinating many more podcast series. But this is the first one, and we will be therefore with you in the cyber podcast space. Thank you, Dora, for preparing everything, asking us these questions, making us talk, and bringing us all together here on the screen.
And I would like to thank you, my dear speakers. Thank you, Violeta. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Juliane. Thank you, Tomas. And a big thank you also goes to our technical support, Paulius Viekis, and of course to our listeners. Stay tuned for more. And last but not least, I should extend my gratitude to the band Whiteheads from Rijeka that has kindly given us permission to use their music, to be more precise, their composition called Istok-Zapad, East-West, in our podcast.